Alright, welcome everyone to another Colorado School of Mines Glass Shop demo video. This one won't have specific demos for pieces, but rather a introduction to frit and color techniques that you can use. This will be touching on mangled, optic molds, feathering, and twisted bits of color techniques. With that, frit will behave differently in different scenarios, so make sure to take into consideration what you're using. First kind of bit is just how to apply frit to your piece. When you go from gather, you're going to go straight over to your color that's either arranged on the marver or in a pan on the marver. Keeping it contained just helps you prevent yourself from losing it in the shop. What you're going to do is you're going to tap that piece all into the frit to make sure you get an even color distribution. Once you've tapped all of it, including the tip at a slight vertical angle, you're going to heat it in the hole, and if you want even more saturation of color, which can be the case if you're using larger frits or you just didn't have a good heat when you first went in, you can always get heat, get another layer of frit, and then go back to the hole and heat that in. You can do this as much as you want for even more color saturation, however it is not necessary depending on the look you're going for. You can also apply several different colors of frit as well, the common of which is to do a 2-layer of frit where you have half and half of each frit color. With that, you just want to make sure that you keep your ratios even. This one, for this particular piece, I was doing a mangle, so I wasn't as clean as I could be, but you just want to make sure that you get your color as you want it. Once you have your frit on your piece, what will happen is you're going to do a couple different things depending on how you want to apply it. This first example is of a mangle, and that's where you just take the tweezers and you twist and you turn and you pull and you play with the glass until it gets this unique shape and interior pattern. What you can do with this is you can just keep playing with it as long as you want to put in twists. Twists are my favorite because then you can get some bubbles in there, but if you pull the glass around itself, you can get some cool color pulls. The big thing is this will heat up the tips of your tweezers pretty quickly, so you're going to want to dip them in water every now and then just to make sure that you're keeping those cool and they don't start to stick. What you see me now doing is protecting my thumb with the back of the jacks as I roll my piece onto those, and as you can see, it gets a little bit hot. This is when you have your hand pretty close to your piece, so make sure that you're really shielding your thumb. But this is to cool that piece down before you go in for a second gather, which is pretty important. You can also do this at the marver, but the jacks are a good way to get your piece back on center without doing intense pressure. Another way that you can have color inside your piece is by doing an optic mold, which is just where you get your bit of glass really, really hot, almost dripping, and then you go straight vertical into an optic mold of your choice, and then you get some cool ridges like you see here. This is probably one of the most straightforward ways of applying color. Here's a closer view of what's actually happening. When you're heating up your glass, you want it so hot that it's almost necking. That allows you to be able to give it a little bit of a push when you go in there to get your optic mold ridges. You don't want to push too much though, because remember, you want to make sure that you're keeping your glass off the edge of your punty so you can maintain as much color as possible. Another technique that you can use is a twist, which is where you start by using your tweezers to pull out a little bit of a nubbin. Usually this is done with 2 colors of frit, but you can do a twist with 1 color and then clear glass showing through. But once you have that nubbin, you grab onto it with the diamond shears. You might be too hot. If you notice that you're pinching more than you're twisting, readjust your diamond shears and maybe pull a little bit lower, and then you'll start to see that twist form. A trick that I've found that has helped me with my twists over time is if I go get a lot of heat to heat in my color and then heat it up and then marver it to stiffen up the sides, that kind of allows that color to pull out a little bit more uniform. You see me giving a little bit of a wiggle trying to get that nubbin off. There we go. Land it straight in the bucket, so that's good. Sometimes you'll have to have your assistant pick it up off the floor. Another thing you can do is what we call feathering. You're going to use a slightly different pick than you're normally used to using. This is a right angle pick, and that's where you take your glass, you pull it down on adjacent or opposite sides, not adjacent, and then on the adjacent sides you pull it up. And you can do a 4-pull pick where you have 2 ups and 2 downs. You can do a 8-pull pick where you have 4 ups and 4 downs. This allows you to get linear striations through your piece, which provides another cool way of coloring it overall. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use to apply your frit, and these are kind of the fundamental ones. You can mix and match as you so please. You can also create your new ones, but these are kind of the most fundamental ones. Another little bit of information that you want to kind of keep in mind is that color is fun, don't get me wrong. However, it's always generally recommended to practice with clear pieces before you apply color, just so you get a fundamental view of how your piece is supposed to shape up without having expensive mess-ups. Some other standard practices are the larger the frit, the more heat you'll need to pick it up. Smaller frits will provide a more uniform covering of color, but the larger frits will be more saturated. More coats of each can solve either of these issues. And then additionally, it's always helpful when you're first starting out to pick up frit of different sizes from smaller to larger, but sometimes you can get different properties of colors and techniques by doing the opposite. The same can be said for transparent frits over opaques or opaques over transparents. Some colors are also stiffer than others, and you'll notice that when you start working with it, but a lot of frit work you can learn through experience, so I encourage you to go out, practice some of these techniques, and keep on glass blowing.